question that I get asked by beginners more often than you might think is, should I be using Python 2 or Python 3? And which should I install to my machine? Those of you with some experience might think that this is a little bit of a silly question, but it's really not, at least based on how often it gets asked to me. And it's understandable because when you're Googling about getting started with Python, it's common to come across old or outdated advice, particularly in regards to your Python setup and other tooling. The short answer to the question is you should be using Python 3, full stop. And in fact, I want you to pretend that Python 2 doesn't exist unless you're forced to acknowledge its existence, right? The reason why there's some confusion here, particularly in outdated articles and blog posts, is that Python 2 was invented in the late 1980s and was receiving developer support up until January 1st of 2020, whereas Python 3 was released in 2008 and is currently the standard. So there was a 12-year or so gap in there when both were being used, and it took some time for lots of Python projects that were using Python 2 to be upgraded and to update their code to Python 3. That is, if they chose to do that at all. There are still some legacy Python 2 projects sitting out there that are abiding by the old precept of, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So there was a time when it might have been sensible to have both installed on your machine. In fact, a well-meaning mentor of mine encouraged me to do this when I was getting started. And then every time I had to do anything with my Python environment, my Python setup on my computer, I was cursing him out, right? Because it was a pain. And in fact, I have never had to use Python 2 ever in my life. In fact, all Apple computers used to come with Python 2 pre-installed by default, but that ended with the Catalina operating system, thank goodness. And now new machines already come with Python 3. There is a very small chance, and that likelihood is decreasing with every passing year, that you may one day have to work with Python 2 code, but just don't worry about that until that day comes, because you can have both installed on your machine, but it can also cause you some headaches to have both installed if you're not really comfortable using the command line, for example, or just managing the consequences that come with having both installed. Beginners should not have both installed if they can at all avoid it. Just use Python 3. And by that, I mean the highest current non-pre-release version of Python, which as of the recording of this video is Python 3.12 or 3.12.